Hello, I'm Suzanne Shapiro. I'm president of the Eugene Symphony Guild. The Guild sponsors the concert previews that the Eugene Symphony gives at the Hult Center. However, this year, the Symphony is going to be presenting concerts in a different format. And these concert previews are also going to be in a different format. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our music director, Francesco Lecce-Chong.
Well, good evening, everyone. Great to have you here. Hope you're all staying safe and well. It's been a long time. It's been about, 8 months since my last Guild concert preview. But so excited to be back here, even if we are all safely distanced apart. And hope you all have some creative, safe plans for Thanksgiving this week. Thanks as always to the Eugene Symphony Guild for sponsoring these pre-concert talks that I always enjoy so much, even if we're doing it this way this time. And a special thanks, I got the most wonderful letter today from the Guild that they'd given a gift to the Symphony in honor of Chloe and I getting married this fall. That was very sweet of you guys. So grateful for your enthusiasm and your constant support of the work that the Symphony is doing. So thanks everyone for joining us and kind of taking our first step into this new series, Soundwaves. And this isn't exactly the way we planned it. This past week we were going to have a small group of musicians back in the Hult Center. We had a wonderful program planned, some wonderful works for strings, as well as Mozart's Jupiter Symphony. And, it's something we had been building towards for months. But of course, with the freeze on activities in Oregon, that's just something we're not able to do right now. And obviously it's disappointing. And I feel like it, at least, not to start us off on too of a somber mood, but, I wish people realized that there are consequences for the things that we think we can get away with. And I realize it's tiring, it sucks, getting to, I see my parents, about once a week here in Santa Rosa, and, it's weird, I don't get to hug them, I don't get to be near them, but, we make it work, we get some time together, and, Chloe hasn't seen her mother in Wisconsin for 8 months, and, you just gotta do these things, we have to stay safe, and we have to make things work so that people can get back to work, so that we can have music again in our lives. We were making things happen. There are orchestras that were returning to be able to play again. On stage, we had all these protocols ready to go, and even that level is not okay right now with all of the rising cases. So please stay safe, stay well, be responsible, protect all the people everywhere, but especially your loved ones as we go through this Thanksgiving. So, with all that aside, we still have an incredible event planned for November 29th at 3 p.m. I'm going to say that a lot to make sure that you all actually put it in your calendars. November 29th, 3 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be showing never before seen archival video of this concert we did in April of 2019 called The Color of Sound. And this was a concert that was a year and a half in the making. It was really my first big project that I kind of jumped into when I got to Eugene, and one of the most incredible experiences probably I'll ever have in a concert. I mean, it was unlike anything I've been a part of, and I was so glad that we had some footage of it, which, we wanted to have that for grant purposes, for archival purposes, to show that we did this. We were never intending to show it in this way, but why not? I mean, we basically sold out the concert hall, and I'm so glad that so many more people now can be a part of this project, because it was just this amazing community event that was a mixture of the visual arts, cutting edge technology and music. And not only did those things come together in the concert, but we had elementary school students that were part of this project who in school were learning about color and sound, and they were actually doing drawings and listening to certain pieces of music. And so we started there. Then we had like the high school and college element. We had these incredible young talented artists who were creating visuals that would then be animated and and shown with some pieces that the orchestra was playing. And we will be showing some of those as well on the 29th. And then there was kind of the centerpiece, this massive sprawling work by Alexander Scriabin called Prometheus, the Poem of Fire. And this piece, we'll get into just exactly how crazy this piece was. But that, that was kind of leading us all there to this just epic artistic work that we took on, a piece that rarely gets performed and just in general, Scriabin on the orchestral side doesn't get performed that often. So before we dive in, just a little bit of a reminder that on YouTube and Facebook, wherever you're watching, we have a lovely little comment section on the side. I can't promise I'll get to everybody's questions, but feel free to interact with each other, leave some comments that I can read later, or if you've got any questions, I'll try to glance over now and then and see who's on. So I've got you guys right here, and great to already see some people coming in. We got all right, awesome. Very happy to see some people joining us this evening. We're gonna have a great time because this is just such a chance for me to nerd out on the music of Alexander Scriabin. And let me give you my pitch, because this is what we're gonna focus on tonight, is this just crazy piece he wrote, and why try to take this piece and make it come alive. So what's the pitch with Alexander Scriabin? I mean, why should we care? There's so many other great Russian composers of that time. He fits right in there between Tchaikovsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, then you have Prokofiev, Rachmaninoff, Shostakovich, all these great Russian composers. And we don't really put Scriabin in that group because he was just another guy doing his own thing. And there's very few composers, I think, that we could say their musical ideas kind of died with them. Like, they were so over the top. They took an idea and they went so over the top that everyone else looked at them and they were like, no, we're not going to go that direction. There's various composers that I can think of, none of them especially well known. I think of someone like Alban Berg, who was in the Second Viennese School, early 20th century, who kind of took the idea of the sprawling operatic work that was his last piece, an opera called Lulu, where the first half of the opera tells her story, and then as her life kind of unravels, musically it's all in retrograde, and so Berg is actually able to write the music backwards so that it mirrors the first half of the opera. Like, he was working on this level where like every single note could be matched to like a formula. I mean, it's incredible music, but everybody looked at that and they're like, yeah, we're good. Like, no one ever attempted anything like that. And Scriabin's very much the same way. I mean, he had this background in, Russian romanticism. He loved playing the music of Chopin. There's a lot of French influence in his music. And then he just like went off to do his own thing. And here's the thing. You want to get someone interested. They're like, why should I listen to Alexander Scriabin? Couple things. Born on Christmas Day, 1871, died on Easter, 1915. And he wrote poetry, all right? And here's one of the poems he wrote. I have come to tell you the secret of life, the secret of death, the secret of heaven and earth. If you think this is too intense, try this. I am God. I am nothing. I am play, I am freedom, I am life, I am the boundary, I am the peak. That's something Scriabin wrote, all right? So he basically, he thought, this was a composer who thought his music was going to bring about the end of the world. The last piece he was writing was a work called Mysterium that was supposed to be performed in the Himalayas over the course of a week. And it was going to have incense and light shows and fireworks and dancing and like all this crazy stuff, and it would bring about the end of the world. It would bring about Armageddon. And then he got a pimple on his lip and it got infected and he died. I just love this guy. I can't get enough of this guy's story. So if you want to read something surreal while you're at home this week, do some reading on Scriabin. There's a wealth of information, and as soon as you go down the rabbit hole, you can't get away from it. But if that doesn't get people interested in Scriabin, take all of that vision and how this composer got more and more grandiose over his lifetime until he thought he was writing for the end of the world. But his music matches it. If there was ever music that is so insanely, ridiculously over the top, that is Scriabin. All right. So let's listen to a little music. Let's get pumped up. Let's get excited about what Scriabin did in his music. This is another orchestral piece he wrote that we actually performed on this concert, but we won't be showing next week because we unfortunately didn't get it on video. This is called the Poem of Ecstasy. These are the final moments of a work that's actually only 20 minutes long. It's not like an hour long. It's just 20 minutes long, but it's a massive orchestra. It's about twice the size of a traditional orchestra of that time, and it sounds like it. So let's get going with a little music. Okay, so there you go. See, this stuff is worth it. It is worth it. And I think we might have had to hire every musician in the area to join our orchestra to put this music on. But man, I mean, this is, there's no other composer that writes with this kind of just collective freedom of just throwing instruments in there. Like, everyone that can play, pick up an instrument, play, let's go. It really just incredible music. Everything he writes is just kind of takes your breath away. It's not the sort of thing that you're immediately going to understand, but the impact of what he does is incredible. And everything, especially later in life that he starts writing, just gets wilder and wilder. But anyways, that's one of my favorite moments kind of in music in general. Just incredible. And actually Prometheus, the Poem of Fire that we're going to play, has an orchestra that size. As big as that orchestra you saw, Prometheus is that big, plus a solo piano, plus a wordless chorus. So it's even bigger than that piece. It's just Crazy. So let's get into that piece, right? So, this piece is from around 1910. And the thing about Scriabin is he didn't have synesthesia. He was just fascinated with the connection between color and sound. And it was something he was always talking about, how these two things could come together and the way we perceive them. In other words, they could kind of heighten the effect of each other if they were combined in a certain way. And so he actually had created sort of a color wheel, and this will just give you a sense for that. Here you can see a representation of approximately what colors we think he wanted. We don't really know what he wanted because this is 1910. So he would just kind of describe the sort of red that he would want, or the sort of blue-green that he would want. So we don't have obviously exact replications, but this is an approximation of what he described when he thought about the different colors for the notes. Now, interestingly enough, none of his other pieces, nothing he wrote actually has anything to do with color. I mean, this was sort of a theory in his head, except for this piece, Prometheus, where along with the full score, there's actually an extra line called the Luce. I'm going to show that to you now. Here we go. All right, so this is the first page of the score for Prometheus. And if you look at that very top line, upper left side, you'll see that first instrument is the Luce, and then below that comes the rest of the normal orchestra. Flutes, piccolos, oboes, clarinets, you can see it all as you go down. But the top line is a Luce. It is a instrument that those notes are not supposed to be heard. Those notes are supposed to be seen. So this was a huge step for Scriabin in actually trying to make this a reality, and really the only piece in which we have a chance to look into the window of his mind and really try to see what this crazed maniac was really thinking when he wanted to combine these two art forms together. So we have the notes, you can match them up with the colors, and that would already be amazing if we could do that. Obviously, Scriabin in his lifetime never had a chance to see this piece performed properly, of course. The most he had at home to fiddle with was like a board with some light bulbs with paint on them. That was kind of the earliest version that people were trying after his death, when people tried to put it on. And it really wasn't until 60 years later, we're talking like the 80s, I think, when the first performance really tried to do something with Scriabin's vision and what we knew about it. But it definitely took some time. And actually, maybe now is a good time to look at perhaps the most standard way this piece is performed. It's not performed a lot, but if you go on YouTube, I would say you can find a good 6-7 performances with some very famous conductors and pianists. This is one with Vladimir Yurovsky, a great Russian conductor. And this is kind of the basic version when this piece gets played. So you basically put on a light show. You have a director kind of try to fill the hall with color, and try to create at least the sensory experience of being enveloped with color as you're hearing the music. So why don't we listen to a little bit of this, and you can see what kind of the most basic version of putting this piece on would be like nowadays. Okay, so you get a little bit of a sense for that. I mean, it's still this wonderful, experience to be able to hear this music in relative darkness and just feel everything being bathed in colors. And you can see that they are switching it at key moments. Now let's go back to the photo of the score. So we're back here. If you look at that top line, you can see there's not much going on, right? There's two lines, there's two notes, which is very interesting, but it's not moving that much. So something like this, you could hire a lighting designer, a director, and tell them, have a score reader and say, okay, when the note changes, go to this color. And so you could line it up in that way with what Scriabin wanted. Let's say if the note was changing every 8 minutes or, every 8 seconds or something like that, then, you would have a chance to call it and be able to have it switch at the right time. There's two problems with it, right? The first is there's two lines at the same time. So this is next level. So Scriabin does not want one color. He wants two colors projected. And in fact, there's one line that's a little more fast moving and then a kind of a slower line that only changes like 10 times over the course of the entire piece. And so that's actually, if you really want to be accurate, you can't do it with just the room lighting. I mean, you could try, but here's the second problem. Let's look at another page from the score. Ooh, I'm sorry. Hard to see. Hold on. I think I can blow this up. Or can I? Can I not? Okay, apparently I can't make this bigger. I am sorry about that. At any rate, hopefully you can see, again, top left side. It's hard to see the line once again. And in that Luce line, you can see the top line has a lot of notes suddenly right there. Like, in fact, there's a rhythm. And every so often, this is the key moment. Every so often, Scriabin wants a rhythm in color. He really thinks of this as an instrument. He's not thinking there's going to be some lighting director and all these people on lights and this whole thing rehearsed. No, he's thinking of an instrument. The way that someone would play a normal instrument, he's thinking of an instrument, a light organ that you would play that could have the same expressive qualities as a musical instrument. And these are the hints where we see that. And so as fun as it is to have a light show, not necessarily accurate. And really that was kind of where, honestly, a lot of this started, is when I first came to Eugene. I'd heard about this great project that the Eugene Symphony had done with a group, Harmonic Laboratory, when they did Berlioz's Damnation of Faust. And Harmonic Laboratory had been able to light up the hall in some really cool ways for this kind of semi-staged opera. And I saw some of those photos, and I wanted to do something with them, and I thought this idea of technology and music coming together was really interesting. But one of the things I've always been very wary of is just having something to look at for the sake of having something to look at. And I think, unfortunately, there's sort of been a movement in that direction, which I haven't really liked recently, where it's like, hey, if we're going to play whole planets, let's look at NASA pictures of the planets, even though that's not what the music's about at all. It's about the mythical figures behind the planets, not the planets. Or I've seen even more ridiculous things like Dvorak's New World Symphony with photos of the Earth. That's great. I mean, people can do that on their own time. But if you knew how hard your musicians were working on stage and how brilliant this music is, why would you subdue that? Why would you push that away from people and not let them experience great music? So for me, if I was going to bring lighting and technology in, I wanted there to be a very clear reason, and I wanted it to be a heightened artistic experience. Like we had to be getting better than the whole, not appreciating less the music. And that's why this was kind of my opportunity to say, here's a piece. No one's ever been able to really build this instrument correctly. What if we could pull this off? What if we could really, Eugene seems like the kind of place that has the right people that would be just crazy enough to go with me on this, and maybe we could pull this off. And of course, that's what ended up happening. So getting back to the score, so basically what ended up happening, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we ended up rewriting the light organ line. So basically taking all the notes that Scriabin wrote when he wanted them, but we made it expressive. So this is music for that top line, the faster moving line. And we gave it rhythm, we gave it dynamics, we gave it expression, all the things that you would give if you were playing an instrument that was producing color. And so we'll get into that a little bit. But before we do that, I want to show you a more updated version, because we are not the first orchestra to attempt to realize the detail in Scriabin's score. That actually goes to Yale University on 2 occasions, but most recently as part of a doctorate dissertation. They really went into the score and all this research on Scriabin to try to understand what he wanted. You know, he had written notes on like a napkin, and he had a whole bunch of scribbles in the manuscript, things like, you know, lightning here and like crazy streak of red here. And he had sort of written things, but obviously he never saw the piece. He had no concept of what it would actually look like. But they tried to be as faithful as possible. And you can see the full performance on YouTube. And if you want to prep for the 29th, by all means, check it out. There's a great little documentary and then kind of the full performance of what they did. And it's very accurate. Like, that's kind of the baseline. In fact, I studied that as kind of the baseline, because you'll see that the hall is the longer line. It doesn't change as often, color. And then there's this sort of star-shaped thing, which is controlled by an electric piano, where, you know, you press a note and it produces a certain color or a certain effect on this sort of star-looking thing. So let's watch a little bit of that. So there you got a little shot at the keyboard too, and sort of a sense for that. So kind of using that as a launching pad, I wanted to create something a little more chaotic and a little more wild, because even as crazy as some of the light shows have been that orchestras have tried to put on with this piece, I don't think they've ever fully captured how expressive the music is in color. The color has always been sort of an added thing, but what if the color was really in the music and as spontaneous and crazy and over the top as the music is, because the two really need to come together. And that was the journey that we started taking with this incredible group, Light at Play and Harmonic Laboratory in Eugene. Light at Play with this incredible radiance orb, this just massive 8-foot diameter LED globe, which we wanted to turn into the realization of our light organ instrument. And then Harmonic Laboratory, who handled a lot of the kind of crossover between the tech and the artistic side of things, and how we would end up lighting the entire hall on top of the orb. And that's why it took so long to kind of put this all together. And so I actually went back and found a couple of videos that I shot in the early days of this project, and just give you a sense of how we first had to start playing with this thing and trying to program this orb to act like an instrument. Because when you have this full 360, you know, globe that you can light parts of in countless colors with countless effects, you suddenly have a color instrument capable of as many subtle qualities as a musician when they make music. And that was the dream, and it was truly incredible. So here's an early day. Here's one of the first videos I shot as Jeremy Schropp, who ultimately was the person who debuted on this light organ with us. And this was sort of him and I on kind of one of the early days starting to work on this instrument, a small prototype of it, in fact. So I'm here with Jeremy Schropp from Harmonic Laboratories, and we're trying out a very small version of our light organ. The next one will be twice as big as this one. But here you can see us listening to a little bit of Scriabin's Poem of Fire, and we have an incredible versatile keyboard here that Jeremy's able to play. And we're just working with the many different ways we can project color on the globe. We're working with the brightness of the colors, the speed at which the colors move around the globe. One of the things, Jeremy.
Percent coverage.
Oh yeah, percent coverage, like how much of the globe is being covered by color. So essentially, we really want to be able to, actually, we are going to write out this light organ part that Scriabin wrote, and we're going to give it notations like dynamics and articulations and all of this. And Jeremy will be able to reproduce that in the moment on the light organ. So it really becomes an instrument in and of itself. So first steps, and we will show you more very soon, I'm sure. So that sort of give you our kind of your first look at what we were trying to do. And if you saw that keyboard, it was incredible that Jeremy knew about this instrument. It's a keyboard, but it's the entire part of it, it's all touch sensitive. And so where you play on a key, it'd be like a piano, but like depending where you play on the piano, where you play on the key, it would react differently. And so you could do all sorts of crazy things with this keyboard, sustaining notes, bending notes. It was just incredible. And the amazing thing was to sit with someone like Yona Appletree from Light at Play, who had written all the code for how the MIDI would transfer to different looks on the globe, depending on what Jeremy would do. And one of my favorite days, honestly, one of my favorite memories was being able to sit there and just be like, okay, like if we do this with the keyboard and I do this, can we have this sort of like crescendo effect on the globe? Like, can we make it look like that? And he would just sit there on his computer and just like after 5 minutes, he'd be like, okay, ready to go. And sure enough, it'd be fine. And if, if I wanted a color to be just slightly different, like can we get a little more blue in that green? Same thing. I mean, he could adjust everything on the fly. Just unreal. I was so in awe of what he was able to do in creating this instrument with us. And so that kind of grew into its own thing. Everything we programmed there then could be programmed to this 8-foot LED globe, which we hung over the orchestra. We had this white material all behind the orchestra so that we could light it up. We had lights on the floor around the orchestra. We had lights in the audience, under seats, in archways. We had light coming down on the audience from above. It was just like everywhere, like every single nook and cranny of the hall was going to have light, so that light and color, so that people could just be utterly bathed in an experience that would be as overwhelming as his music is. Because that was the idea, that you don't look at something, you just feel it coming at you the same way sound would. And the last component, as you know, is this was a piece with a solo piano. So it's almost like a piano concerto, and I knew I needed a pianist with nerves of steel to deal with, just light and color and all this stuff happening. And so Christopher Taylor, who I'd done some amazing work with in the past, always really looked up to him, and a real specialist in just, big, massive works of music. He's done like the Messiaen's Vent Regards. It's like a 2-hour-long piano piece. He did all the Liszt Transcendental Etudes in a concert. And I knew he could handle this. And of course, he was really excited to do this with us. And thank God we had him for that. So what did it kind of all look like when it came together? Well, here's just a little snippet to kind of show you what you're in for next week if you didn't get to be in the hall. So there you go. I mean, it's hard to capture on video. It really is. And of course, this was just a rehearsal. So we were still, working a few things out. But you sense how things can move around this globe. You have a lot of motion going on that you can really control. And we just had a lot of ability to do whatever we wanted. Obviously, I wish we could have done a bunch of performances to show people how spontaneous this instrument was, because that's the thing at the end of the day, is I wanted Jeremy to be able to be in the moment and feeling the energy on stage and have that translate to color, and not just, you know, someone pressing a button and something happening. And we did achieve that, and that's what was absolutely beautiful. And I can't wait till we have another chance to kind of dig in with this instrument, maybe do something else with it. But Scriabin was the first and the last. I mean, like I said, he was off doing his own thing long before people were thinking about the technology of how this would all work. He envisioned it all. And he envisioned all of that. He also envisioned that he could walk on water and fly. So, you know, he had it all going for him. But luckily, he left us with some just incredible music to dig into. His piano music is especially wonderful. But this was an incredible opportunity for us. I can tell you right now, Scriabin almost exclusively gets played by about maybe the top 15 biggest orchestras in the world, because it just takes so much to perform his music. It takes so many people and so many logistics to put it all together. And it was just, you know, it's only in a place like Eugene with the grants that we got, the incredible Holt endowment, and then having the people with the capability and the interest to make this all happen. It really required everything to kind of fall into place to make this happen. And just really excited that we have a chance to show it again. After all that work we put into it, it was over in one night. And I had to admit, I definitely had the post-concert blues after that. I really wanted another shot at that. And this isn't necessarily that, but it is a chance to experience it once again. And we're really glad we can share that with all of you. You know, one of the nice things is I'm supposed to end in half an hour, but of course I've gone over because I always do. But I don't have to rush to a concert. I don't have to like throw on my dress clothes and head on to stage. So I'm going to finish up here. Just remember November 29th, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All you have to do is go to the Eugene Symphony YouTube channel. I highly recommend you click the subscribe button, because then you will automatically get notified when we go live like this, or we have any of our performances coming up this season. Like I said, this was supposed to be start of a series that would feature our musicians and myself on stage working creatively and safely in these times. And we still are going to do this. We can't tell you when, but we had it all set up and ready to go, and it's still going to be there the moment we can safely get back in the Holt Center. We really have a great set of concerts planned that we want to put on for all of you, and have this chance to interact with you in this special way and bring you up close with our musicians. As you'll see with next week, you're never really going to get in too close to the orchestra because we were really just trying to capture the experience. But in the future, these are going to be film productions that are going to really bring you in lots of cool angles of the orchestra, seeing us from different sides, and a lot of other, speaking components to it to really turn it into a full, amazing experience for all of you. Even if you can't be in the hall with us. So really looking forward to be able to bring that series to you. But this is not a bad way to launch it, with probably one of the most incredible projects we've all ever been a part of. Getting to show that, not a bad way to get this all launched off. So I've been seeing some great people have been jumping in the comments. I've been glancing over when I've been playing some of the videos. And before I finish, just wanted to say thanks to everyone for joining, and maybe see if, I don't know if there's a couple questions in here. Oh my God, there's a lot of comments to get through. But let's see, were there any, I feel like I saw a couple questions. Yeah, Laura had asked about what a huge orchestra is, that 10 French horns. So what's interesting is you're written for 8 French horns, but what happens in music like this is it's so taxing on the brass players because they have to play so loud for so long that you have to even sometimes have 2 principals. So it's not crazy. I mean, 2 assistants to some of the principals. And so it's not crazy that it could have gotten up to 10. I think we had 9. We had 1 assistant horn on top of the 8 horns. So the orchestra gets stacked in the brass section very quickly. Jay asks, did he match his music in his regular life, outside music? Scriabin's life itself, he went kind of so mystic on everyone, that his writings and his music and his ideas are so out of this world. His life was pretty simple. I mean, interestingly, he really was renowned as a great concert pianist. apparently was just a brilliant pianist. And if people thought he was a little crazy on the composer side, they definitely loved seeing him perform. What else we have here? Jay asked, "What do I look for on YouTube to see what you showed?" I think you're probably referring to the Yale performance. I would just put in Yale Scriabin Prometheus on YouTube, and it will show up first. I mean, it's a well-watched video on YouTube. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Did anyone join us on YouTube? We get some people joining us on YouTube. Oh, Brenda's here. Brenda asked, how did the musicians react to the light? It was tough. Yeah, I definitely really proud of my colleagues. I mean, they really pulled this one off. It is not easy to play an entire concert with moving lights, and sometimes you're in darkness, sometimes you're being scorched with light. It was certainly a concern going into this, and definitely made some of those early rehearsals a little difficult. We definitely had to move some lights around so they weren't going directly in people's eyes. But I couldn't really have been more pleased with how everyone just made it happen. I mean, it's incredible. As picky and as perfectionist as all of us are as musicians, when we're given a challenge, we just make it work. And it was incredible how well it came off, even with all the flashing and the changes in the colors and all this stuff. Musically, it was very, very satisfying. Well, wonderful, everyone. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining me and for joining our orchestra as we take these steps forward to making sure that we are bringing all of you music in the community. And we have so many great musical experiences that we want to share with you. So really hope that this is a start of a wonderful journey, even though we can't be in the concert hall together, but obviously very much looking forward to when that day happens. So stay safe. Stay well. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. I will look forward to virtually seeing you all on Sunday, November 29th, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Eugene Symphony YouTube channel. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.